desires are distorted, mismatched, uninformed, unchecked, and unsupported. What's up, everyone? Thank you for joining me for episode 8 of Office Hour with Your Therapist. I am your host, Cam. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we're looking at a very important dialogue when we think about partnership, marriage, the marital coalition, and how does bringing a child into our family have an impact on that marital relationship, on that parental coalition. And I understand that I'm speaking to kind of a privileged, sort of like majority type of situation, but this is just to get folks thinking about what are these different kinds of desires in our hearts, and how do we look at this in a better way, a different way, so that we feel more equipped and prepared to actually have an ongoing sense of well-being and health throughout the process of our adoption. You can ask this question of yourself, and perhaps you and your partner, you and your spouse might be able to ask this with one another and have this discussion. First idea, and today we're talking about desires. So 5 desires to consider. The first one is distorted desires. Why are you choosing to bring a child into your family? Why do you want to adopt? Is there such a thing as a 100% altruistic motive of bringing a child into our family? I'm not here to point fingers or blame or shame anyone. This is for y'all to have that honest heart check reflection. Why are we adopting? I've said it in the past, adoption is not for you. I've said it in the past, if you're unhappy, adopting a child won't change that. So we're just thinking about, why do you want to adopt a child? Distorted desires, and really doing that personal heart work and figuring out what are the motives of this for spouses, right? And that leads me to the second idea. Second consideration is mismatched desires. Does one spouse want to adopt and the other couldn't care less? Does one spouse want to adopt and they're just dragging the other along? Mismatched desires, and that's something to consider, because as soon as that child is in your family now, everything that you know about your way of life, your daily life, plans, that's changing. That's going to set us up for some mismatched experiences later on down the road. Maybe even some finger pointing, maybe even some bitterness and resentment about who's taking care of who, when, how much, how long. We start counting the hours or the tasks that been doing, and then, you're the one who wanted to adopt a child in the first place. I didn't want this. I didn't ask for this. That's really tough to hold 5 years into our adoption, 6 years, 10 years. Our children notice these things, and it really shapes the way that they view themselves and then the folks around them. And so if one partner is not ready for that, or does not want that, and yet we're still adopting a child, we really need to take a step back and ask, is this really the path for us? And ultimately, the reason I'm even making this video is this the best kind of path for that child? And so that brings me to the third idea, uninformed desires. Okay, so it's all right to say, wow, I really want to open up our home for a child. I want to be able to love, share our blessings with other people. That's fine. That's really fine, okay? Now, I think sometimes that sort of like generosity without information can be kind of reckless and careless in a harmful way, where if we're very open to bringing a child into our family, but we're not open to learning about how to care for that child, we're not open to asking questions about what's in the best interest of the child, what does it look like to care for this child lifelong, that's a little irresponsible. So we're asking, how can we inform those desires so that they can be beneficial for the child you're bringing into your home? Okay, next, fourthly, unchecked desires. These are sort of like self-inflated desires. I am not really allowing anyone to speak wisdom and truth into my life, ask me questions, and kind of provide a sense of guidance for me. I'm just here to adopt, and that's it. I am not really open to feedback or critique about my process. We're just going for it because it's the right thing to do, and that is dangerous. Unchecked desires is quite foolish, actually. And so what we want to ask is, who can we bring into our life to really walk through this process with us, to maybe reveal any blind spots? Is there any way within me that needs to be examined or adjusted or restored in some way? And how do we make that apparent in our life? So, unchecked desires. Lastly, unsupported desires. Once we're in the throes of parenting, gosh, I think, just personally speaking, you can read all the books you want, but once you're in it and you've got a kiddo who needs you in that moment, sometimes there's like one spouse who is all for it, we're ready to go, we know how to say all the things, empathy, listening skills, paraphrasing, all of that. Other caregiver just checks out, and that could be for a variety of reasons, but they're unsupported, right? So they need help to help their child. And so, I had all of those other things down, those 4 previous checkpoints, but now that we're actually in it, I've got no support whatsoever. I don't have someone to talk to. I don't have a support system. Really isolated here, just alone, okay? And so that's something you would really want to make sure. Do we have the emotional, mental, spiritual, physical support set up in place so that when the stressors and the pressures of life come at us from the outside and even from within, I've got someone that I can check in with, sure, my spouse, but also outside of the family, who can help look at this whole thing from sort of like a detached third party type perspective. Of course, they still care. Of course, they're still genuinely involved. But they're supporting us, okay? We're working on our emotion regulation, we're working on our parenting skills. All of those pieces are coming together because we are supported, okay? So 5 ideas, 5 desires to check in on. I hope that is helpful for you to get a discussion going with your spouse, your partner, if that's a situation that you're in, but also if you're adopting as a single parent, a single caregiver family. I hope that helps you in your process as well, just how to map that onto you as you think about how adoption will have an impact on your family and your caregiving relationships. So thank you so much for stopping by episode 8, Office Hour with your therapist. I am so thankful you're taking time to look into this stuff. I really appreciate it. Don't take that lightly. I think mental health in general, there's still a lot of stigma around it, not just in the adoption community, but just in general. So the fact that you've taken time out of your day to look into this is huge. It takes a lot of courage to do that. So thank you so much. Have an awesome week, you all. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.